But let's get back to the medical lobotomies. They've come out, of course, in the last decade, announced all of these new types of vaccines that go in with live viruses, either create viral plaques to plug up receptor sites for anger and aggression and resistance and freedom, or they actually eat, that is, replicate and destroy the receptor sites, or they cause even more deadly autoimmune responses that block these regular steroids is the main thing they're trying to block naturally occurring, the estrogens, the testosterone in the brain, and that's admitted. And so there's an autoimmune response which causes chronic brain swelling, which is, of course, Alzheimer's. That's why you're getting people 25 getting it. And then, so it causes continual brain swelling. And they're announcing they plan to start injecting people, Alan. And after we have the shot, we'll feel much better, Alan.
That's right. And remember, too, what's happening today is 90 years behind the times, because Huxley wrote about that in Brave New World. How do you think you get them from one type of society to a nice, placid, genetically altered and created society? You must take them down gradually. And Britain in the 1930s, remember, was the first country that was teaching at Sandhurst the aspect of total war, where whole populations are the enemy. That includes your own population during a full-scale, all-out war. This is full-scale world war, and we are all the targets, and we must be brought down until we cannot use our critical thinking faculties anymore. Back in the 60s, remember, Arthur Koestler, who worked with MI5, who was a propagandist for International. He was a Trotskyite, too. They hired lots of those guys to write novels and books and so on. He also took part in an actual survey they're doing for the United Nations to find ways to lobotomize the general public through chemical means, through water, the food supply, injections, in order to bring about what they called world peace. World peace is absence of all opposition, and that's what's happening today. As I say, we're way behind the times. For a lot of people, it's already happened, as you well know. You can't get through to the ones who've already had their ability for self-preservation destroyed. And Kessler said that we can destroy that particular part in the brain very precisely that makes you an individual you. And he said that that's what he called the ghost in the machine. That was you, your personality with your innate ability for self-preservation. He says that will be destroyed through chemical or injections, food and water to bring about world peace. He said the public won't need to make decisions because the state will make all their decisions for them.
And they call this full spectrum dominance, and most of the public has succumbed to the chemicals in the water, and now they're going straight to the end game of an injection that turns you into a biological android, and the cops are going to hold everybody down, and they're going to do it themselves, and they just want to lose their soul, their body. They love it. They love it because they feel that petty power trip of submitting, and so good. Your family, your whole family line, they plan to neutralize us psychologically before they just release mega plagues and actually kill you. And so I know I'm the enemy, the cops and military, you want to die, the bureaucrats, you want to die, you love it, you love it, you love it, you just love it. And we're 100% accurate. It's all on record, and now they're announcing they're coming to inject us with literal brain-eating vaccines, and they're trying to force inoculations everywhere. They're taking people's kids that won't take them with the, quote, flu shot. And they admit tenfold in brain damage, Guillain-Barré, in convulsions. It's all admitted. The Gardasil's killing people, and they love it. The cops love shooting their kids up and watching them die. The school teachers love shooting them up, watching them die. Why do they love the death and the kids all over the block dying of cancer? Why do they love it so much, Alan?
Well, they are sadomasochistic. See, totalitarian societies run on sadomasochism with an intelligentsia at the top who literally go by a completely different set of moral rules and principles than anyone else, and they get off with it too because they're so incredibly wealthy. However, all their generals and all the way down respect the guy above them who's got more power than themselves, and they despise the person beneath them who's got less power. So it's a sadomasochistic system. It came out during the Nuremberg trials. We saw the generals and all the different officers behind Hitler still praising him as though he were a god, literally. And the same thing happened with Stalin, of course, when he died. All the people came forward, and the officers themselves, who knew that they were slated for death next if he had lived. they were still praising Stalin as though he was some kind of god. So sadomasochistics are attracted to power. They will literally deify the person with more power. That's what they're after. They deify the ones with it, and they despise those with less. Those at the bottom with no power, literally, they're utterly cruel and ruthless with.
That's right. That army captain and that sheriff's deputy, they looked at these were citizens. These were piles of garbage. These were filth. These were blood bags to serve them. How dare you in America videotape anything? How dare you? How dare you, slave? How dare you, scum? We'll be right back with Alan Watt. Enjoy the shots. I want to go over some documents with Alan Watt in the next segment. And I want to get him back up in the next few weeks because he's got so much knowledge. CuttingThroughTheMatrix.com is his website. Our sites are Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. We're launching a major information warfare salvo today. I'll tell you about that coming up in the middle of the next segment. I need your help. We're all in this together. Ladies and gentlemen, I get agitated and upset because I haven't had my neurons destroyed. And I've been reading a lot of globalist documents, in fact, some of which I just read in the last few days, Alan. And I've noticed you talked about this years ago, that a lot of globalist documents bemoan the fact that lithium and fluoride in the water doesn't seem to work on some people and actually makes them more angry. Then I noticed the movie Serenity throws it in your face. And I even saw an interview with the director talking about it. He's anti-New World Order. And it was a great movie. But they take a whole planet in the future and put in the atmosphere Prozac drug. But it ends up killing most people. They become so passive, like the shrimp that are ingesting Prozac now in the news, that just give up and die. But others become more aggressive. And, I mean, I'm seeing that. Do you have any take on that?
That's true to an extent with a lot of drugs. You'll find there's some people who can't even take an aspirin for a headache. It'll actually make the headache worse. Others can take painkillers, even higher grade painkillers that will intensify the pain. So some people do react in an opposite way with certain medications. However, what you're finding as well is that a lot of the whole thing starts when you're young. They talked about this back in the 20s. How could you literally alter the chemistry of the brain and the chemistry of the person if you wanted a world of peace? And they talked about inoculations were the best ways to do it, and they could target specific areas.
Diet injections, injunctions, Bertrand Russell.
That's right. Yes, and also, and even before he came along with that too, and said that openly, there were others who talked about that as far back as George Bernard Shaw in about 1918. So he would belong to the Fabian Society that belongs to the Royal Institute of International Affairs or Council on Foreign Relations. So this is an old agenda. And what they've found, too, since then, is that with your first inoculations as a child, they're supposed to piggyback on certain enzymes that go to the brain. And it's interesting, you see, every cell in the brain, every type of tissue in your body vibrates at a particular frequency, a very small electrical frequency, not a large one, very small.
It's electrochemical.
Yes. And therefore, the nutrients for that particular part of the brain will vibrate at the same rate as the tissue it wants to go to, or the tissue it wants it to come to, and that's how it finds the tissue with a particular nutrient.
And that's what they're saying with all these new vaccines. It will literally block you being able to become upset or resist, and suddenly it's all over the news. They're now moving against us publicly.
Yes, but along with the fact that they could take up the nutrients to different parts of the brain, they knew they could piggyback the chemicals or even a virus onto it.
No, that's what they say. They say they're piggybacking the steroid on the back of a live, with this particular one in the news this week, with a live herpes virus to take it right into the brain and hit you hard.
That's right. And therefore they could lobotomize different parts of the brain that makes you not so much aggressive. If you're aggressive, you can be aggressive for a very good reason, and that means surviving. And all of these characters from the Fabian Society and long before talked about the fact that the world did bring in, we had one obstacle, and that was the general public. How do we lobotomize the public and make them passive and obedient?
And there's no doubt from studying all the last major vaccines, I want you to comment on this, that they're adding these piggybackers into the vaccines for at least the last 30 years. They've already hit the public. That's why they're zombies. Most people out there are already brain damaged. That's why we can't reach them.
Yeah, they can't understand. It's not they don't want to understand. They can't understand. And those parts that we should kick in with anxiety and a little bit of fear leading to decisive action are gone. However, the thing is, some people sneak through, just like the medications often have the opposite effect. Some people, they'll find that because their physiology is slightly different, those enzymes that uptake to the brain can be diverted to other parts of the body, often into the intestines. And they've found people, for instance, with lots of allergies.
Well, no, they now admit Crohn's is a measles vaccine. And that's why you have all these new diseases. It ends up attacking with an autoimmune response in the intestines. And that's almost killed one of my great employees who almost got very close to dying from Crohn's. And they know exactly what they're doing.
They've known what caused that for over 50 or 60 years at the top levels. See, there's different levels of medicine. Whatever's in the Lancet journal is what all the doctors believe. That's what's taught in university. But in the higher levels of medicine, it's part of the military-industrial complex, because warfare takes in medicine in a big way for bringing down populations long term. So they've known this for 50 years, what they were doing.
Incredible.
Even longer. Yeah.
Stay there, Alan. Finish up on the other side. Riveting. And everything Alan is saying is in all their own literature. For banking, for government, they have super advanced schools that once you become a general or once you become a governor, they then send you to the advanced Woodrow Wilson School or others to be really taught the secret plan. They always want to intimidate you and put the onus on you like you're morally bad while they're sucking off of you, while they're poisoning you, and all their minions are being slow killed. But they love it, because most of them are already so brain damaged. Now, we're launching a key operation. We're going to Alan Watt in 2 minutes. Poison tap water. We've had 7 terms in a row. We've never failed, thanks to you, the listeners, making whatever term we put out the #1 search term. Then it leads them back to our articles and our battle plan of action. 2 days ago, it was brain-eating vaccine. It caused over 100 blogs and newspapers like Wired Magazine to go absolutely ape. Even News of the World tried to spin it to make it look like disinfo. That's one of your big tabloids on store shelves. It is not working. We are countering them. The new search term is poison tap water. It's at Infowars.com by Matt Ryan. Paul Watson's going to expand this article with even more documentation, because, again, I have these ideas live on air during the live battle space. And that's what this is. This is total resistance for the species to survive against a scientific technocracy. This is not a game that you're living in a hardcore science fiction nightmare, but humanity is rising. And for all of you who want to make jokes about it, you're already casualties. Enjoy it. If you can't see pure tyranny when they're out in the open, now saying they're going to put lithium in the water to control you when they're already doing it, then fine, enjoy yourselves. They admit corn syrup, they knew increased cancer massively. And now more medical journals admit it, and they don't care. They're going to hit you hard. Aspartame, bisphenol A, sterilization, cancer, and it lowers aggression. Everything they do in standardization in products you eat and drink and the packaging is meant to sterilize and, this is key, and reduce your aggression. It's aggression that fires the resistance, that fires determination, as Alan Watts said. Here's the article. Alex Jones is launching a new campaign to inform the public about the toxic chemical fluoride being added to the water across the country. While EPA scientists and workers are calling for an end to water fluoridation, we have a link to their top scientists coming out and saying it's deadly. The government is doing everything in its power to continue and even increase the amount of toxic chemicals being added to the public water supply.